there's a story about the intrigues and rejecting the CS nominees. So one was rejected, the CS nominee for gender was rejected, culture and arts. And according to this story by The Nation, there was apparently some, conversation about the Honorable Wycliffe Oparanya, or whether he should be rejected or not. But then the issue of Honorable Oparanya is there an ongoing case investigation? Yes, there's an ongoing investigation. Is there an ongoing civil case touching on him? Yes, there's an ongoing civil case. So what's the bar of integrity when we talk about integrity? We talk about Chapter 6 of the Constitution. What's the expectation? And those are the questions that people were saying. Did we expect to hear such a question being asked of the Honorable Oparanya? He was asked, he said, okay, the only thing I know is that those guys came to my house and were asking me how I relate with Raila, what business I do with Raila. Is that the truth? Is that all? Should the EACC, for example, like Con you're saying, Parliament can then say, Parliament has wrote to the EACC asking, is there any matter touching on any of these candidates? The EACC writes back and says, we have no ongoing investigations on the candidates apart from this one.
But it's something that arose, Eric, with the questioning. The question I asked myself was, yes, there are questions that you ask the nominees. If the session that you have with the nominee produces issues that need to be interrogated, the time that was given for that whole process was not exhausted. Was there recourse to say, please come back on this other day so that we can have follow-up questions? Because something as serious as this, you're holding a docket for the nation. I've seen that the hours that were used were sufficient to actually interrogate everything. 1, 2. As we listened to the questions being asked and we also listened to the responses, surely it brought up other things that also would need to be addressed. When would these things be addressed? Lastly, there is the committee that was set up. That's the best we could do. Okay?
With the committee?
Yeah, that's the best we could do, okay, as a country. Those are the questions that we could ask these people here. These are the best thing we could do. How do you get a committee that seems to more or less be in uniform about what they're asking, how they're asking it, the manner in which they're approaching it? Some are even appearing to assist the people who are supposed to be questioned. And, it abrogates so many things. You are talking about integrity. You're talking about... That's why I asked, is this the best we could do? We, people who are supposed to be vetting individuals whom we are going to entrust the well-being and the welfare of this entire nation on. And that is the show that we were...
I think both Parliament and the President missed an opportunity here. Because like Con, you rightly put it to us earlier in the beginning, the cabinet was dissolved because there was no public confidence in that cabinet. We can then therefore also say that on June 25th, Parliament was raided, visited by the people of Kenya to express lack of confidence in Parliament. This was the first major task that Parliament undertook after resuming, right? Save for the other one of just rubber stamping the fact that the people have rejected the finance bill. This is the first major one. It was an opportunity for Parliament to regain the confidence of the public with this, by showing that, yes, we know that the other cabinet was dissolved because of lack of confidence. We want to make sure that we give the president a cabinet that has confidence, even if you're only going to approve one of the 22 members that he's brought to us. They missed that opportunity, right?
Yep. Yes, they did. I think, like we said, I think the commission appointments, which is provided for in the standing orders of the National Assembly, should have sat down and thought that how can we do this differently to reflect the demands of the public on how cabinet should be moving forward. I think you had a few members who were quite bold in how they were approaching the nominees. I liked Honorable Naisula Lesuda, for example. I think she was quite insistent on some of her questions. She was quite bold and quite frank in asking some uncomfortable questions. So I agree. I think we should have seen more from the committee and not business as usual. Yeah.
So then now what? Does this new cabinet answer the question that was there before? We do not have confidence in your cabinet, Mr. President. Do you think now the conversation changes? We have a bit of confidence, or we have confidence, or we still do not have confidence?
Does this cabinet inspire confidence?
I think it's a yes for those who. It's a yes for some and a no for some. It's definitely a no for those who wanted a clean start. It's probably a yes for those who feel, okay, 50% are new. But I think now the question will be, how can, if they're going to stay on, how can they inspire confidence? And that's the question that they must reflect on and ask themselves. That's the question the president must have when he has appointed them, and that's a question that every other segment of the public and our public institutions must have. How this cabinet must ask themselves, how can we inspire confidence? I think Kenyans were very clear on certain things. Transparency. We don't want to be hearing very serious, highly impactful policy decisions being leaked. And then is when they come out to say, actually, yes, we were doing this. We don't want that kind of thing anymore. Communication. You had CSS who never communicated with the public in the 2 years. Never communicated with the public, never came out to even bother to say anything. In fact, when they were being dismissed, some guys were asking, oh, this guy was in cabinet, Integrity. It's going to be a different ballgame about integrity. There were questions asked in the Committee on Appointments. There are those who had integrity issues, like you mentioned. Your integrity, who you are when no one is watching, is going to be such an important thing. Accountability. This is what we have, this is what we have used, this is how we have used it, how you collaborate with the people, empathy. Kenyans were really ticked off at the lack of empathy from cabinet. You had a lot of arrogance in cabinet. There's a question that that members in the committee kept asking, will you be a desk CS? Will you just be locked up in your plush office, receiving delegations or doing what you're doing on your desk? You want to see an engaging cabinet. Go out and see how the policies are being implemented, see the impact of the policies of your docket, and come back and address that on your desk or at cabinet. So these are the things that Kenyans were talking about. And I think if this cabinet is supposed to regain or increase the confidence of the public in them, they must apply.
There's one CS. There were others, but let me point to one who was very visible. And one saw a lot of activity in his docket. That was Owalo. You saw him all over the place. The other one was Kindiki, but for different reasons, you see.
Yes.
Kindiki, we heard him say very many things, make many, many promises. Those promises fell flat on their bottom. Nothing moved. Okay? Everything that was being queried then is still being queried now. Solutions that were being sought then are still being sought now. He has been returned. Fine. He has been returned. But that, in my opinion, is window dressing. Who runs the ministries is a question we should be asking. And what real power do CSs actually have? That's a question that I want to ask. Because as far as I know, unless there's something different, the only executive CS position is that of Treasury. Who runs it? And if we're talking about the changes that we sought, we focus on the CSS. Should the citizenry not have asked that same question and asked, who actually runs the ministries? Is it the ministers? The answer is no, it's not them. They don't actually run it. They are figureheads, by and large. Are we expecting changes at the level of the PSS? What do we call them now? What do we call them again? Principal secretaries. Yes, exactly. Okay? Why am I bringing this discussion? A lot of the things that the political class does, they take us on goose chases. They give us things to chase after and to talk about and run after, and we stop looking at what we should be looking at. How competent are PSs? All these people that we have, all the people who actually run the government and the people below them, the secretaries, how competent are they? And who do they actually take instructions from? In my opinion, that is a discussion we ought to be having. Because you can appoint all these people here. If the PS and the people they work with don't want to work with you, Haki, you will do nothing.
Agreed. Totally. In fact, I used to see people ask, and I think I also ask myself the same question. A place like Treasury, very, very important place that should actually be placed in a neutral space because it serves the whole country. It serves both sides of government, etc. But you've got a system within the ministries led by the PS, who's the accounting officer, and other senior people within the state departments that the PSs lead.
And whom the PSs rely on
and who the
to actually run their respective dockets.
Exactly. And they can paralyze the PS if they don't get along.
They can paralyze the minister.
Who are you saying? The PSs?
I am saying...
The ones below the PSs.
Yes, I'm saying that...
The civil service.
These fellows, that is it, the civil service.
Yes.
People who never really change, and they're almost faceless, but they are the engine.
And that's just like we were saying yesterday, or was it the day before yesterday? The problem, I think, with our civil service is that it has been politicized.
It has.
Because if our public service was not politicized, then it would remain the professional side. It's still serving the people. The machine would be moving. We're giving the example on the difference with if Kenya went parliamentary as a parliamentary system versus the other parliamentary systems that we see. And we're saying in the UK, you saw the number of prime ministers that kept coming in and going, new cabinets coming in and going, but the public service was the same and the citizens were still getting their service. You see the same even in Japan and Italy and elsewhere. The civil service is still churning and doing its job because it's not really completely affected by the politics of the day, right? Here, new administration comes, watu walikuwa watu ya nini wende, watu walikuwa waende. You start seeing senior people being promoted only on account of their affiliation to the political powers that be. So it's completely politicized.
I think the last 1 month that we've not had CSs, we've seen some PSs step up. Let's give it to them. We've not, I could be wrong, but we've not really felt that
Absence of a CS.
Absence of a
How
CS.
can you feel something which didn't exist?
But yes, but true. And you've seen PSs step up. Not all, I mean, there are many. There are like 50 PSs. But you can begin to see a lot of them coming out, taking press conferences, doing quite well, articulating policy issues, including new things. In fact, I noticed, and I wish I wrote it down, but I tended to feel that as I was watching the approval hearings of the nominees and some of the policy issues being raised about those dockets, I tended to see, like the next day or the next 2 days, a PS handling something related. It's like they were all watching and saying ahead, there must be some gaps here that are being addressed. How can we begin to push that? And what does this mean? It could mean two things. One, that we've seen a more robust PSS Coordination System or mechanism in place with the head of public service having his own forum with the PSS as their kind of like their line manager, but also the Prime Cabinet Secretary having the forum for monitoring programs and implementation of programs. And you had Mudavadi as acting CS for all ministries. We didn't see Mudavadi going to every office, sitting on every CS's desk, running everyone saying, yeah, it's probably not his style. But we felt a number of PSs just step up and take charge. And maybe it's because of that coordination mechanism working. But also, we hear rumors that once the president is done with the cabinet, he's going to that next level. And guys have to shine. You have to come out and show that, hey, I'm doing and I'm delivering my job.
Is that really the case? Because from what I've observed over time, the key requirement for holding those jobs is not to do well, but to pander to whoever it is you think is your appointing officer. That really is the basic requirement. How that translates into service for the citizenry is something that you need to explain to me, because I don't often see it. Do you see it?
I mean, you have to juggle those two. I don't refuse that senior people like CSS or PSS must leave room to pander to the appointing authority. And depending on the kind of administration, you see those levels either high or low. Kibaki's time, we didn't have it really, really high and serious. Guys were freed up to do their work. But yes, you have to have that balance. These are senior technical and political roles. A bit of political acumen is important. Even on the CSs, I know we had envisaged with the new constitution that we shall have purely technical, non-political CSs. How we have then interpreted that in the last 10 years is that we will appoint a politician who will then resign from political office, and then they become technical. But eventually you then see that there are some politicians who bring in a bit of that political gravitas needed to run a ministry. A ministry is a minister or a cabinet secretary is one who should be able to understand the impact of government decisions on politics and the impact of politics on government decisions, what I call political economy.
I agree.
So people have been arguing that we should not see politicians in cabinet.
Why not?
That the expectation is that to have technocrats in cabinet. What do you say to that?
Eric, think about it. Whether they're politicians, whether they're technocrats. Technocrats can be politicized, okay? And then they become completely ineffectual. You even wonder where it is they brought that person from. The question that bedevils us has always been, the person, integrity. But the real question is accountability. Because it doesn't matter, in my opinion, who has that particular position. If we have a mechanism, if we have a process by which people know they will be held to account, that technocrat will actually outperform the politician, because they are used to actually just doing things. They are result-oriented, they'll focus on results. But with the current system that we have, if you take a technocrat into that position, that's a lamb to the slaughter. That person will not be enabled. There'll be roadblocks at every step they make.
Because it's a very political position.
Very, very, it's entirely political. The politician will be spending their time politicking through getting things done. So how do we get the accountability mechanism to the point where people understand? Looking at these appointments and given the vetting process, that accountability mechanism that we thought had risen up, it's been stepped on again. Because that entire process, everything about it, as I told you earlier on in the morning, these are things that depressions are made of. You look at this thing and you wonder, God Almighty, what on earth is this?
Where were we and where are we?
Yes. What is this? These people who we give the mandate to lead us, are they not capable of seeing what they are doing and the harm it's going to cause? Can't they see it? Because this is disaster in the making, seriously. You say we are going to have changes. Changing a face doesn't mean changes beyond just that changing the face. What is it that we're complaining about? It's not the faces, but the non-performance of these faces. We were saying what we expect isn't being delivered. That's what we were saying. Not particularly that those individuals are necessarily bad. No, but they represented something deplorable, something that was supposed to happen and didn't happen.
Yeah, and if the new cabinet secretaries are coming into the same system that the previous CSS had, then we might just go back to square one.
We're just where we were, never left.
Yep.
So I've got to ask you this question. I've been asking this question of all the guests who come. Do you think this, seeming disquiet among the public on the journey, the nomination of the cabinet secretaries, the vetting into parliament, and people are saying this is just all a sham? Do you think it's just restricted to some urban elite? Do you think the entire country is feeling the same? Do you think what we're seeing across the country in those finance bill protests and the feeling around the finance bill would be the same feeling right now on the new broad-based government?
I don't think it's restricted to the urban elite. The urban elite, of course, quite vocal and have access to a lot of mediums of expressing their disaffection. The impact of government policy is being felt across the country, urban and rural, and peri-urban. But this whole process that we've had of approving the nominees, I think there are those who, one, don't care. Two, I think there are those who are like, okay, let's move on as a country, and you hear them, and let's see what these guys are going to do. And three, I think you've got the Puritans who are like, this is not what we wanted, we are not happy, and we're still going to agitate. And that's the complexity of Kenya.
Who do you think have the greater numbers?
Who has the greater numbers? I think the majority of Kenyans, adults or those who consciously engage, Gen Z and above, who consciously engage on politics and policy, collectively until probably our parents' age. I don't know if there's it's hard to say who was a majority. I'll probably put 30-30-30.
We will do a poll.
Different groups have done.
In the next hour, we'll be doing a poll. We'll open the phone lines and we'll ask people, does this new cabinet inspire confidence? And we'll be able to see from the people who call, at least we'll be gauging what do people feel and what are they saying. News time, 9 a.m.
FM.